Welcome to the Roar podcast. This is a well-being podcast that will inspire you to create and live a life that you absolutely love. Here at Roar, we care deeply about people's physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual well-being. You know, too many of us walk this tightrope between pressure to perform and fighting fatigue from not prioritizing our well-being. We literally work through burnout and sacrifice our work-life balance to get ahead in our careers. But there's another way, and it starts with you. I am your host, Marilise de Villiers Basson, and this is our third episode for 2024. And today I'm welcoming fellow South African and soul sister, Sjeanne Cawdry. Welcome, Sjeanne.
Marlies, so great to be here with you. Kindred spirits, kindred souls, and it's just a privilege to be on your show. We're really, really grateful.
Absolutely. I met Sjeanne last year. So we haven't actually known each other very long. Through the CISO Alliances, the Journeys to Inspire community. So this is a community that is passionate about attracting more women into careers in tech and cybersecurity. And, you know, we instantly connected. It was like Sjeanne speaking my language. And as we met, we were both also going through a pretty big life change. I was in the process of moving back to South Africa after 18 years in the UK. And Sjeanne was going the other way. So she has lived in South Africa her whole life and has now moved to the United States. So I'm really excited to hear more about that experience as well today. Sjeanne, before we start, I just want to tell my listeners a little bit about you. So Sjeanne is now the CEO of Center of Liberation, a global advisory, coaching and mentorship business that empowers women leaders and change makers to leverage their power, scale their income, and influence for greater success and transformative impact in the communities they serve. As an international keynote speaker, Sjeanne permissions women to play an even bigger role and also fall in love with their power. She's the driving force behind Power for a Purpose, a movement that leverages humanity's divine power for greater contribution, profit, and impact around the globe. So prior to moving to the US with her wife, Dana, in 2023, South African-born Sjeanne has had an illustrious career in both sport and corporate. So in her early 20s, she achieved a highest world ranking of 23 in squash, representing South Africa. Amazing, Sjeanne. When I heard that the first time, I was like, amazing. That's so cool. And it just shows also the level of commitment and discipline, you know, as a high performance athlete that you've had to learn in your life. So very, very, very impressive. And then she transitioned into the corporate world at the age of 33. So worked with Rand Merchant Bank, which is the top corporate and an investment bank on the African continent for over 12 years. And she worked as a visionary change leader, supporting top-level executives to deliver large-scale, complex business transformations. And this, for me, is the crux about you, Sjeanne, your ability to bridge the gap between traditional and non-traditional paradigms. That makes you invaluable in driving innovation and shaping a brighter future for individuals, organizations, and society. So welcome.
Who is this person you're talking about? I want to meet them. Thank you so much. Great to be here.
Yeah, it's great to hear this about yourself in sort of the third person, you know, it never feels like saying these things about yourself, and just shows your humility and also something I loved about you the very first day we met. So I'm going to dive right into your purpose, which is obviously to help more women love their fucking power. I know you passionately believe that there is greatness within each of us. And, you know, why is this? Why love your fucking power? Tell us.
Yeah, I love that, Marlies. I love your fucking power is my keynote speaking engagement that I'm bringing out and speaking at conferences and etc. And I just want to, just before we go into that, so I've just moved to the USA, not 2023, 2025, so it's a very 2024, so very recently, last year. And then just to jump into, why. Having worked with so many high-level executives, myself included, and women, these powerful women, just like who ooze power, who ooze wisdom, who ooze this divine feminine embodiment of just having accomplished so many phenomenal things and just bringing in so much wisdom, and then working at these high levels for so many years in my career, and whether that was at squash and whether that was in the corporate world, whatever, and yet finding so many women playing small, including myself. And, just sort of really grappling with filling out, becoming, well, I want to say like expanding into the expansiveness of our power. And so I became really curious about not only about myself, but about, what is going on here that we just, especially women, grapple with loving our power. And as I've been on my journey, which I can go into more detail in a little bit, I realized that we were never taught as youngsters to love our fucking power. We were never taught to, it's our divine birthright. Life is not around. We are born powerful. It's about revealing more of our power. We are divine beings, powerful fingerprints, soul prints of the divine, of God. We have this godliness in us. Yet, our parents and their parents never said to us, hey, you are so fucking powerful. Like, love it, harness it, cultivate it, use it to create your life. Show yourself how powerful you are and how great you are. Embody it and express that into the world and express your true essence. And rather, we have all had many experiences of painful experiences of being in when we have expressed our power, certainly myself, hugely capable as a youngster, and kind of really got smacked around by life, various triggers through my life, really kind of, I found myself erasing myself, disappearing from myself, wanting to literally like vanish, because the expression of my power triggered others, and those triggers coming back to me were just extremely powerful, as painful, and kind of ultimately led to myself, I would say, losing my voice, vanishing, feeling like an imposter. So let me rather hide behind it, like dumb it down and like fit into society. And I feel like so many women have done that. And, as I started to go on my journey and call back my power, and started investing heavily in that sort of some 30 years or so ago, I started to encourage women this is our birthright. It's in each and every one of us. It's not even about remembering. It's around being it. It's around revealing it. You cannot become more powerful, because by the fact that you're a birth, you're a soul, you are from divinity and source, and this is my belief, you are already powerful. There's nothing to be ashamed of. There's nothing to hide. There's nothing to feel guilty of. But society, unwinding those societal constructs around being powerful, and the pain oftentimes with being powerful, and then learning to maneuver it and use it. So I'm passionate. I think power's got a bad rap. I think people in power, leaders, we're seeing it around the globe. We've really, really just struggled. Control, manipulation, subjugation, and suppression, and particularly of females. It's time to unwind that. This is the time for females in particular, and I say women because women, it's the both, but it is the time for women to come out with their messages, to come out with their transformational impact, to balance out the masculine with the feminine energies and bring forward huge transformation messages. I'm privileged to sit in so many conversations with phenomenal women, listening to what they are envisioning, what they are wanting, what they are wanting to change in the world, global impact. And I'm just passionate about permissioning that and driving this power for a purpose. So that's how it's incepted.
Yes, I love that. And I also love the more personal side of your story, about knowing pretty much from a very, very young age, that you were different, and that sort of journey that you've been on. Can you just give us a little snippet? Because I just would love. my listeners to hear a little bit more
Yeah.
about the personal side of Sjeanne, and why you really had that pivotal moment, didn't you, when you said your life
Yeah.
force was leaving you? Tell us about that.
Yeah. So, I'm so fortunate now, and I wake up every morning extremely grateful. I'm living in a new country. I call it on a new timeline. I'm a person who lives out the box. I don't do the status quo very well, and that was reflected. I'll get into it now from a very young age. I'm a truth speaker. I'm passionate about showing up truthfully. And so, I get to wake up in a new experience on an adventure. I think our souls want to adventure. They want the newness. They want the unknown so that we can learn how to expand into more of our greatness. And so I get to live in a new country and experience this new adventure. I've reshaped a lot of my financial world quite significantly, combining traditional and non-traditional. And we can speak about that in a little bit as well. But that's very much like in these non-traditional spaces like crypto, Web3, and making different kinds of investments and using my own intuitive pathways. I have an American wife, and just get to live a liberated life, like exploring myself. I go to these Joe Dispenza retreats. I shape my own business. But it wasn't always like this, Marlies, and this is what you're referring to. From a very young age, I'm 51 now, and when I was about 12 or 13, I realized I was gay. I knew I was different. Not only was it wasn't just being gay, it was like I was highly, highly capable beyond my years for a young adult at that point in 12, 13, highly capable on the sports field, always playing above my age categories and everything. Phenomenal squash player, highly sort of physically orientated. And realizing and recognizing that I was gay from a young age now, somewhat 30 years ago in South Africa and societal wise around the globe, this was not accepted. And, love my parents to bits. They're amazing, amazing humans. But everyone just had a journey to have to travel with the construct of homosexuality. And that included my parents. And so from a very young age, I received these messages that this is disgusting. Don't ever be like that. And, it was referred to as they. And so the messaging I received about being gay was not very pleasant. At that point, I hadn't come out, but certainly I knew that this was going to be on the horizon. Anyway, somewhat, I journeyed with myself personally for some time, trying to be straight, had plenty of boyfriends, and just kind of really grappled. And at the age of, I was about 20 eventually when I showed up in my truth. I knew I had a choice to either live a lie, live under the covers, live hidden, or stand in my truth and express the authentic expression of my voice, the authentic expression of the power of who I was. And so I expressed to my parents, that I was gay, etc. And I remember the moment sitting at the table, and just as it came out of my mouth, like watching the I would say devastation, particularly for my mom. And just like as I watched that, I literally just felt my life force drained from me. I wanted to disappear. It was like this collapsing and dissolving. And even though I was present in physical form, it was literally like something just erased and disappeared within me. And it was like, let me just disappear. My truth causes harm. My truth causes pain. My truth causes devastation. My truth causes chaos. And, I went through a period where there was a lot of chaos. And so it was just like, oh shit, no. Don't be in your truth to this level. It's too much for people. And then, of course, where do you belong? And so it was a real difficult period. And so that's really the sort of, and there were various incidences, from a young age that continued to kind of trigger this, like voice, truth, authentic expression of power is very difficult for other people to handle. So that's where I first sort of found that sort of erasing, losing of my voice, etc.
And I can see how when you have really traumatic experiences like that, when you do up and it is causing so much pain and devastation around you, how you can become incredibly afraid and how you can withdraw and and I think I see this to an extent in most people. It's that sort of that almost like that thing that just prevents us from actually roaring, from actually speaking up, speaking truth,
Exactly.
not necessarily your truth, but truth in general. And that's the thing, right? It's like we have so many different truths, so many different lenses, so many different perspectives in life. But I really want to talk a bit about fear and our relationship with fear, because it's
Mm,
that
mm,
afraidness and that self-doubt that is preventing us from actually uttering the words. But of course, it starts with the inner work, right? So talk
correct.
about our relationship to fear, and how you have reframed your relationship to
Mm,
fear in
mm.
sort of in recent years.
Yeah, such a great question. So I think that's a lifelong journey.
Yeah,
I'll start
I
by
agree.
saying, I'll start by saying this is that I am so passionate about, I feel like many women that I'm fortunate to work with, and just women in general, are powerful. They know in some sense that they are powerful. They feel it. And they're now held back, to your point, around the fears, these illusions, the I want to call it core wounds. I work extensively with something called gene keys as a base construct in the work that I do, in the mentorship that I work to align to the frequencies of who you authentically are. And and in that, it's Richard Rudd's work, and in that he introduces this concept of a core wound. It's the core wound that we carry for humanity. And so whilst we have, let's say, all of us have our unique sort of, let's say, shadow, fears, these sort of things that hold us back, we come in and we're imprinted with what he describes as a core wound, that this is the collective wound that we get to heal from humanity. And there's six. And my particular collective wound is shame. And isn't that so apt? Because I tell my story, and it was just like I took on the shame of, let's say, being a leader, of being powerful at a young age, of leading truth. And in the public domain, so whether that was my parents and then out into society, it was a very difficult time to be out in society, a lot of rejection that I faced, etc. So leading in truth, being powerful, but then that fear around being, let's say, shunned, being ostracized, being excluded, which of course you don't want to be, right? We want to belong. So that raised a lot of fear going forward for me. Now, as I started my callback journey, I call it the callback of my power. And so spending countless hours of like, how do I actually start bringing myself back to myself? So I found myself at some point in my life, 30, 32, like in a devastating place, just generally. Finances terrible, relationships terrible. But I knew at that point in time, when a relationship had collapsed and I was in this new environment for myself, saying I'd lost myself from the age of like when I'd come out to this, 10, 12 years later, I'd really kind of, the disappearing was just too much. And so my life was not looking good. It was quite chaotic, in fact. But in this breakup, I realized that this was the period in my life where I was going to call back my power, where I was going to show myself everything inside myself that needed to be rearranged, realigned. And this is part of the journey, is the realignment process of true authentic self, and the call back in terms of investing in, whether it was coaching, mentoring. I go on these Dr. Joe meditation retreats. I get myself into mentoring. I completed an MBA. I got into the corporate space. So that was like me going through my core wound of shame to show myself how powerful I was. I put myself into situations where I had to go beyond my ages, where I had to show myself as my soul was calling me forward, inspired by my heart into these uncommon spaces, so I could push through the illusion of fear and push through the illusion of, I'm going to say, shame particularly. So my fear around being shamed, shunned, ostracized, fear of failure in these public domains was the core wound that my life, I've had to continue to swim through to heal the core wound. And when I heal it for myself, I heal it for others. And so my relationship to fear is, I see fear, and I know that that's a portal through the core wound and through the eye of the needle. And I know I'm going to have to do it. And again, like being supported and finding those places of support, and people have done it before, because as you come into more and more of your power, as you pass through these portals of fear and pass through those areas of transformation, things in your life change, because your frequency changes. You heal so much. And so things fall away. You might get a new job, it's a new relationship, you might be in a new country. And so having the support to actually navigate that as you go through. And so, fear for me is around the baseline, and you speak around courage. You're going to have to muster up the courage, because whatever your core wound is, it's going to take you into very uncomfortable places, not because it's there to harm, but because your heart knows that you are more powerful and more capable than you can ever imagine. Your heart and your soul knows that beyond the space of fear, there is a life that waits for you that is so liberated, so free, and you get to expand more into your power. One of the beautiful things about it is that as you elevate and you move through these kind of spaces of fear, and you're mastering up courage, and you're showing yourself beyond the edges, various different resources, various different capabilities, and you're changing your inner world, what you start discovering for yourself is that you develop a different level of consciousness, you develop a different level of mind, you develop a different level of being, and you're actually able to then contribute greater solutions to the world, because you come from a different level of mind, you come from a different level of being, you see things from a different perspective. That brings more impact, more responsibility, more influence, and so your success rides on these kind of waves and stewardship of moving through these portals. But it's scary. And I think people shy away because they don't understand the core wound element of it. And that's just your soul saying, it's time to heal this. It's time to touch more wholeness. It's time to touch more worthiness. It's time to show yourself that you are a worthy being, capable of phenomenal things. And, I've just come off the back of a Dr. Joe Dispenza meditation retreat, where we spend 6, 7, 8 hours in very deep meditation. There's breath work. He's teaching, and he's a phenomenal transformative teacher and practitioner. And, fortunately, and again, I'm kind of in a bit of a biological upgrade. I had a lot of energy coming through me, but I was so reminded of never get used to being you. He kept on saying, never get used to being you. We are so addicted to the energies of our past emotions, so caught up in the emotional bonds and addictive bonds. And I was sitting there watching myself in so many instances. I had a very difficult retreat for various reasons, but it was phenomenal. As I watched myself sitting in these places of still shame, of guilt for being powerful is a massive thing for women. Massive. Like, we feel so guilty for being so capable, and so dropping these cloaks of guilt and shame, but watching how strong they were. And so moving through these portals of the core wound is where you get to unravel that. And as you unravel that, you release more of your light, more of your frequency, more of your power, more of your love. And when you can combine these worlds of unraveling and releasing more of your light into the world, you're able to leave footprints for others to do that. When you're able to do big things, expand into big things, show people that loving your power is like, it's not arrogant. It's arrogant not to love your power. And you can bring love and power together, and you do big things. You leave footprints for others to do. And just not getting used to being you, get used to being new, get used to being beyond the edges, because it's beyond the edges where you are able to discover the unknown. You allow the divine, because it's your sacred power, right? So you allow the divine, you allow the mystic. The workshop was Molecules of the Mystic, and we're going deep into the mystic. The mystic is the unknown. And you've got to allow the universe to bring you the unknown. You could never imagine it. You could never imagine you could meet this person. You could never imagine this job would like pitch up out of the blue. You could never imagine this. That only happens in the unknown. It only happens when you can't predict the future. And so putting yourself into these edges of the unknown, and then allowing the universe to meet you with synchronicities, coincidences, the magical, the mystical is what it's all about. But you can't come at that from the same predictable self. And so, long story short around fear and why I love seeing fear.
I love that. And I think the whole, fear is that sort of, it's just showing you that edge, and it's pushing through those edges, and inviting the mystic, the unknown, which obviously is kind of a beautiful segue into the how and the solution. Because, it's like, I always say to people, you have all the power inside you to make all your dreams come true, your wildest, biggest dreams come true. And I can just see people's faces drop, because it's like, it's so hard to believe that, it's like believing that you are an infinite being having a human experience, and you had infinite power already in you. I love that quote you shared with us in your masterclass a couple of weeks ago from Eckhart Tolle, which is about the power is in you, the answer is in you, and you are the answer to all your searches. You are the goal, you are the answer. It's never outside. But we're so conditioned, and the societal conditioning is to kind of grab to outside things for validation, and the thing you've said earlier about making yourself small, it so resonated with me. I felt the chills as you were saying that, because it's like, no more making yourself small to make other people feel better about themselves, right? And it's that whole embracing your, people say too muchness, but I want to actually reframe that as well today into your power, your fucking power, so it's just so
Absolutely.
beautiful for me personally, even to make those connections and sort of connect the dots. So I really would love to go into your how, in terms of your, I think you call it, I just need to, the portal. I love that word, portal,
Yeah.
because it's like, it makes it just so like you've got to go through something, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I love this portal. And so the portal of transformation to your own power. I know you have a beautiful, beautiful solution for that.
The portal of transformation to your power is something that I've worked with extensively over the last 30 years as part of the process of calling back my power. And let me just frame it and give some context as to why this is so powerful. And this is where, part of my keynote speak in terms of love your fucking power, like fall in love with your power, like was really incepted by the idea of, and it's Greg Braden who speaks around in his wisdom traditions, who shows just how powerful we are. And I think that's important. Like, how do we actually know that we're so powerful? So he's got a great way of anchoring it in. And, he says we are the soft technology that we need. So what does he mean by this? He says that the average adult, we have about 50 trillion cells in our body, and cells can carry electrical volts, right? And when we think about that, if each cell can generate 0.07 volts of electrical potential, which is a tiny amount of electrical potential, but when you've got that and you multiply it by 50 trillion cells, that number becomes quite big. And the number, in terms of, remember, we are frequency, we are energy. So what he's talking about here is that as energy and frequency, we have the capacity to carry electrical currents in our system. And as we are showing more of our light, and so we are elevating our frequency, our energy, and our potential is coming into fruition and being manifest. So the 0.07 times 50 trillion cells leads us to 3.5 trillion volts of potential. 3.55 trillion volts. That means if you have to think of a car battery, and you can all imagine a car battery and what that looks like, that equals and equates to 3 billion 12-volt car batteries is the potential of one human being. So your 3.5 trillion volts of potential, that is what it fundamentally equates into. So if you don't think you're powerful, that's why I kind of wanted to just frame it. You are fucking powerful. Yeah. Because you're born powerful.
It sounds so just enormous, like almost unimaginable,
It's unimaginable. You could light up, I think he equated it, you could light up Chicago. I think that's the same amount of electricity that we carry, the same amount of potential. So it brings me to my portal of transformation. How do you do this? Like, how do you call back your power? And then how do you express it? It's an inside job. For me, it's around, when I call it a portal, and to your point, Marilise, you're so apt, and it ties back to the fear conversation and ties back to the courage, because we are every single day faced with choice points. And the portal of choice, that's free will, is constantly with us. We are constantly, how do you choose to respond to something? How do you make a choice to shift your energies, to shift a thought, to be patient in traffic, to, I don't know, be generous? We can't, every single moment is a choice point, and that opens into a portal. And so I summarized it as follows. So there is a triangle that I've used, my model, and it is your inner formula to amplifying your impact, your influencing success. Because once you are unleashing this, your 3.5 trillion volts of potential, you can only do that by being in the unknown. But it means that when your heart, well, let me go back to the triangle. So that the model comprises of a triangle, and it's surrounded by a circle, because the circle is the portal through which you enter. The triangle are the three dimensions, the core dimensions of the model, the three fundamentals. The first fundamental is conviction. I'm going to talk to that more in a second. The second fundamental is belief, and the third fundamental is what I call the trinity of trust. And when you start working with this from an internal perspective, from your inner world perspective, this really shows you your energetic signature to power. We all have a signature to power. Now, the signature to power shows up in what is your relationship to money. That has a certain signature and texture. What is your relationship to love? That has a certain signature and texture. What is your relationship to being a leader and holding power of them? So as you start to understand, I have an energetic signature and a certain frequency to these things, and you work with let's say one arena of your life, you're going to discover what your signature is, and then you're going to be able to elevate it. So if we come back to these three core fundamentals, conviction, belief, and the trinity of trust. So if you can imagine, that's housed at each corner of a triangle. Let me talk a little bit, first of all, around conviction. What do I mean by this? This is the inception point. This is where your soul starts to talk to you through your heart. It's the super conscious mind. And it says to you, conviction is like you start to get a vision, you start to get something on repeat, you start to get this move to another country, it's time to sell your house, it's like there's another job, or there's something that starts pulsating through your heart. For me, it comes in visions. I can get pictures. So like recent ones has been, not recent, about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, like me on stage speaking, etc. No other information, but every time I close my eyes to be in meditation, and I practice meditation every day, at least an hour or two, carve out time to work on my vision and my mission. But it just started coming in, like this vision of stage, no other information. That's the heart and the soul starting to call forward. It's starting to signal you it's time to change, and it's time to show yourself that there's the next. And usually the next is always bigger or more than what you currently are. So it's asking you, the soul is saying, I said to you initially, like the soul wants to adventure, it wants to expand, it wants to have this life experience, as a God being. And so as you start to get these visions and think about yourself now, like what is on repeat for yourself? That's a key distinction when it's just like something that's passing or something that's asking you for a life change, a life transition, asking you to expand into your bigness. What is on repeat for you? For everybody, there's always something on repeat. And it could be in any area of your life. Finances, spirituality, growth, I don't know, studying, going on a holiday, buying a new house, changing countries, doesn't really matter, changing jobs. And so can you, number one, answer the call of your heart? Are you willing to? No evidence. I think the difficulty of this is like there's no evidence. Like there was no evidence for me being on stage. It's like, huh? Like, and then I wanted like the linear, okay, well, show me what's next. I want to know exactly what's next. There was no evidence for like, okay, time to sell your house, like move to another country. Like there's no, okay, which country, how's it going to work? What am I going to do? No, the heart doesn't work like that. And so we drop into conviction to say, can you believe enough in the conviction of your heart's intuitive calling of you that it is leading you into a place of wholeness, into a place of joy, into a place of aliveness, into a place of more? People are so afraid that they're going to be led into, when their heart calls it, they're going to be led into pain, into suffering. And so they don't trust it. They don't trust that intuitive thing. And so the first thing is like cultivating a very powerful relationship with conviction of your heart's call, of your intuitive call that doesn't show up in the evidence. Because when you look in the echo chamber, and Angela Deutschmann, a beautiful mentor of mine, she shared like the echo chamber. So when you look in your life and your life is reflecting back to you as an echo chamber, there's no evidence for this thing. There's no evidence that it's successful or etc. what the outcome is. There's no evidence that it's even showing up in your life, but you've been called forward to create it. And as Joe says, you create from nothing. It doesn't exist. Speaking on a stage didn't exist. It was just the vision. So can you create from nothing and show yourself that you are more powerful, that you are a creator, that you can co-create, and you can bring this from nothing into fruition so that your echo chamber starts to reflect it. And so that's the conviction piece of it.
Beautiful.
And so when you look at your energetic signature to that, how much do you trust your heart? How much do you believe in the conviction in your heart? Where are you leaking energy? When are you self-doubting? When are you in and out? And so it talks to that belief anchor, because the belief anchor says, oh, I believe in my heart. I believe in my intuition. I believe I'm capable of moving country, building out my phenomenal global business, recreating outside of the structures of what South Africa offered me, outside of the structures of the corporate world. Could I believe in conviction so deeply that my heart was leading me into something better, into something joyful, and the fact is that people say, well, I followed my heart and sometimes it didn't lead to great stuff. When I've created financial abundance for something, I've been scammed. I've been taken for a ride. My heart took me on a journey. I believed in people. And quite frankly, I had to really go back and say, well, where did I go wrong? Where do I learn about that particular piece of intuition? And know for myself that it's never wrong. Your heart is never wrong. It doesn't lead you to a wrong place. Your heart knows things we do not fucking know. It knows where you're going. And so there's a lot of learning in certain processes or whatever. So now I've become, in terms of like cultivating this intuitive pathways to money, which I teach as well. Like I've become adept at how do I actually read these phenomenal investment opportunities that are not normal. They're beyond the scope of what we understand from what our financial advisors are going to tell us. Hey, they've worked out really well. I've got to take 3 or 4 months off now to move country. I got to convert rands to dollars. I'm doing okay. And so, so we look at this belief thing, and that's the first, it's one of the first things to say, where do you believe in yourself? Where don't you believe in self? Where have you lost? And where do you give away power, that power in terms of your conviction? Where do you give away power because you have self-doubt, because you feel you're not worthy? Because, now I say to you, conviction is the super conscious mind. It's the heart. It's the mind of the cosmos. It knows what you don't know. Belief is now your subconscious mind, where you get, I say to you, what is calling you forward at the moment? What is something that you are being asked to grow into, to expand into, to step onto the stage into? And there's always going to be a gap between who you are now and who you need to become on the journey to actually be on that stage or be in that new role or be in that new house. You've got to become a version of yourself. And in that version of yourself, you get to explore all the limiting beliefs underlying that. And when you can see the limiting beliefs that are keeping you between what you know to be true because your heart is knowing, and then what your subconscious mind will allow you, you get to then close the gap and become. And the journey, as Joe says, is never actually about getting the money or getting the house or moving the country. It's who you became in the process, because you become this greater level of mind, greater level of consciousness. You've moved through portals of fear. The third part of the portal is then what I call the Trinity of Trust, and this was incepted again by Angela Deutschmann in a transmission that I had with her. And the Trinity of Trust says, when you think about your internal world, it's also got it's Trinity because it's like fundamentally the 3 anchor points on this is, do you fundamentally trust yourself? Do you fundamentally trust the divine? And do you fundamentally at the core trust life will support you? And I think this really sort of sums it up so beautifully, because you get to explore those dimensions in this portal to say, oh shit, I don't trust myself that I'm capable of, let's say in my case, like moving country, watching rands converted, by 20 to 1. establishing another successful business, so all of those things I've been playing with extensively. Say, oh, here's the trust gap. I don't trust myself in this. Oh, here's the trust. I'm actually not trusting the divine and the conviction in my heart. So you get to really swim in this place of deep trust. And trust is a journey. All of this trust is a journey we are all going to be faced with as we move through, as I say, as you transform your power and you move and you get to work on the inner workings. And why it's so important, because as you are closing all the gaps in this, and you just got to make fine-tuning choices. It's not big stuff. You just keep fine-tuning as you're noticing the gaps. Your internal will change, your frequency changes, you elevate your frequency, your echo chamber, when you're doing it right, because your echo chamber starts bringing you synchronicities, signs, symbols, new opportunities, and your echo chamber starts changing. You are not doing. And so you start to see, oh, wow, you're a powerful creator. You are starting to move the needle. The universe is starting to respond to you. And you start to say, shit, I'm powerful. And the next thing, when the vision of your heart, for example, meet and you have grown and become it, there's a meeting point. And so suddenly this thing now exists in your echo chamber, and you're going, holy shit, I just created that. I'm a fucking powerful being. You may as well love your power.
Yes, love it. I think the key word for me is that creator. You become the creator. So beautiful. And I think, when I attended your masterclass a couple of weeks ago and you shared this with us, I think it was so transformational for everybody that attended. And I think the trinity of trust was really the piece, as you say, oh my gosh, suddenly it's like, do I really actually trust myself? And I actually look at what we've done over the last sort of 18 months in terms of, the initial decision to move back to South Africa, and now living in South Africa, the boys settled in their new schools, having built a home from the ground up. We bought a piece of land and we're now in this beautiful home. And I'm literally, some days I'm like, I'm pinching myself because I'm like, how happen? And as you were saying that, I was like, actually, I'm kind of living and breathing this stuff, but I'm still not trusting that that's the case, right? So profound connections I'm making as well, as we speak. So thank you so much for that gift. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolute pleasure.
Yeah. So always run out of time, because obviously there is probably hours and hours more content we can talk about. But I just wanted you to sort of, like, obviously people might be listening to this and thinking, oh my gosh, this feels like, oh, where do I even start?
Yeah.
Because I mean, that whole conversation, I think that whole conversation about your heart knows and listening to your heart, I think, I remember 6 years ago when I left my corporate career, on my knees, completely burnt out, escaping from a really toxic situation at work. I was so numb. I didn't feel anymore. And it really, I went on a journey probably of about 2-3 years before I could actually even feel again, So the whole connecting with the heart, I think, there's so much unlearning that needs to happen, especially with the environments that we all sort of tend to operate in on a daily basis. And so I just want to call that out, because it's like, there's nothing wrong with you. It's just the conditioning. It's just that we've been also conditioned and wired to think, and not feel. So I just want to sort of just presence that with people, and maybe just sort of invite you just to say, as a sort of a summary and a conclusion and your final thoughts, where do I start?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And it really is around reconnecting with the heart and taking small baby steps. So there are always multiple areas of your life that are calling you forward. So for me, it's around, reconnecting with the vision of the heart, reconnecting and opening. In my journey, I had to learn to open my heart again. We face so much trauma, and if you're powerful and you're listening to this, we're all powerful. So I don't want to, we're all powerful, right? you will know that you have faced triggers. You've faced, I want to call it trauma. You faced life would have set you up to somehow, to kind of close yourself down to your power and then start the journey of waking up to your power, or remembering or revealing once again your power. The first thing I'll say is you're never given something, your heart never gives you something in terms of like that you're not capable or ready to heal. So for me, there's been healing, there's been realigning, there's been teaching myself to desire again, and then there's the creative process and then the manifestation process. So I take myself through those components, and it's really just starting small, it's starting small with something that's calling you forward. No, you're going to have to be brave. That's part of it. Know that courage is going to be a part of it. And it's small steps, and it's, I say to you, create time and space. One of the things is, how do you create time and space for your heart? How do you open your heart? I do it through meditation. I do it through contemplation. I do it through always leaning into what's on offer and that my nervous system can handle. I'm not some people like, I used to be one of those where I just took my nervous system out of like overdrive. So it's always like, it's a little bit challenging on your nervous system. It's going to be a little bit challenging, but even if it's like, who's that conversation you need to have? Where and with who? Is it to ask for an increase? Is it to ask for more bonus? Is it to ask for a promotion? Is it with your partner? Is it that you need to leave a relationship? Is it that you, et cetera, et cetera. So you're going to know in terms of your tolerance level, where that stretches, and then it's about leaning in. And then it's cultivating this relationship with your heart. I do that through meditation and contemplation. Intentionality is everything to me. I'm very intentional. In fact, my wife and I have developed an app where it's Arena of Life app. And part of it is to be able to construct this transformational journey for myself. So I get very clear on the intentions of a particular area that I'm working on. I get very clear on the initiatives that I need to take, the new habits that I need to take. So I kind of give myself a bit of a plan. And in the meditation contemplation process, and I use gene keys as well, I'm constantly working with what are the insights, what's been revealed. I'm asking for help. I'm asking for the divine to give me messages of transformational messages of the next step. And so that's a big piece of it. And I think we live in duality, to your point earlier, and we forget to actually cultivate the most important part is with our heart and with the intuition and with the divine. Create that space. Ask for the next direction. Ask for help. Receive is a huge, we could have a whole 2 hours on receivership, but we won't. And then know that you're going to, I think if you know that you're going to pass through a portal of overcoming a fear, a trauma, a past pain, then at least you've got that information. And importantly, I think it's like, find people who have done what you're wanting to do, get into mentorship, get into coaching, and know and get that support. We don't do it. We want to do it on our own. We don't do things on our own, especially when we're moving into places of power, because life does change. And so just having those support structures is incredibly, incredibly useful. Then it's just about creating this vision of your future, getting very clear what you don't want, what you do want. That's the desire. And so when you start opening your heart and start healing these things, you can start feeling again. And sort of I use various techniques to help people start feeling again, but helping create that vision and what that vision could look like. And then going into the creation process. And that's a whole different sort of, there's all sorts of things. So connecting, the other thing is through contemplation and meditation, through breath work, there's various ways and techniques to actually connect with your field. As you're doing this work and you're healing, you're expanding your electric magnetic field, your aura, more information, more downloads, more aligned messaging. You're tapping into the superconscious. You're tapping into messages that are aligned with you. And then you've got to learn to discern what's real, what's for now, what's for later. So it's this whole thing. So, those are just some of the practicalities of where to start, Maralise.
It's beautiful. And I think, really want to presence the importance of having grace with yourself, having that patience,
so important.
that, it doesn't have to, like, again, as a sort of ex-female executive, I was always so conditioned to work hard, and it has to be hard. And the harder it is, the more you sort of like, you almost kind of get addicted to that feeling of it has to be so tough. And what I'm leaning into now in my stage of my life, in the curriculum that I am navigating, is very much around ease and flow and joy. And in the process, I've got to unlearn so many conditioned habits, old habits, and really just having that grace and that patience with yourself is so utterly important. So you mentioned your app. I love that, Arena of.
Yes.
I know that is
Yeah.
available on the App Store.
Yeah. App and
So
Google. Yeah. Apple and
and
Google.
Google. So please,
Yeah.
please do have a look if you want to find out more. And then, Sjeanne, I think the best probably is to reach out to you, Sjeanne, spelled SJEANNE, at centerofliberation.com. So Center of Liberation. So center is spelled CENTEROF and then liberation.com. Obviously, your website is centerofliberation.com. So if you want to go to the website, pay Sjeanne a visit. And then, of course, Sjeanne's also making herself available for, I think you said 6 discovery calls.
Yeah.
6
So very
free
excited and
discovery calls.
yeah, free. It's a power breakthrough session. So
Yeah,
very exciting just to see where your energy signature is in relationship to your. So it's an hour session, and we explore your energy signature in relationship to power. Go through a
beautiful.
bit of a transformative 1 hour session. Would love to host six of your listeners as a gift, and just come into my world and experience falling in love with your fucking power and
Yeah,
what that could look like.
that's
Yeah.
love it. Sjeanne, I just want to thank you so much from the bottom of my heart, for joining us today. This is always, like, speaking to you is always such a mind and heart and soul blowing experience for me, because of all the work that I know you have been doing over the last 30 odd years, and how you are now stepping out into your power to share that with the world. So I celebrate you and I thank you. Really, really loved this conversation.
Yeah, really. It's always a pleasure. And I always love chatting to you. And when we get together, sparks kind of fly as we conjure up like what's possible in the world, and how we can really shape and bring more and more people into their power, into their courage, into their raw, to make the change that the world is really calling out for. And so just
Yes.
encouraging, I think, just a final word from myself is, Marelise is living it, doing big things, just moving back to South Africa. I'm doing it. The world needs your transformative messages. The world needs women in their power, in really power for a purpose, and reshaping and re-navigating and realigning the experience of power and leaders and leadership. So we can call in this new world. We're in the crux of it. I don't know, but my March, April has been like full on. And I feel like that for many of us as we call in this new world. And so just really encouraging you, if you have a transformative message, that there's something bigger waiting for you. You've got to bring your power online, love it, adore yourself, and give permission to others to do that and bring your message into the world.
Yeah, and it's that permission, I think, which also is about, that's where you get the impact and the greater reward and satisfaction for you on a personal level. Amazing, amazing, amazing. So thank you everyone for
Amazing.
joining. Yeah, thank you for joining us today. If you loved this conversation, then please hit the subscribe button. We have a powerhouse of guests lined up for 2024, so you don't want to miss even a minute. And if you want to get in touch with me, you can email me at marilise@marilise-de-villiers.com. In the meantime, live your authentic purpose, stand in your power, or as Sjeanne say, call back your power, and have the courage to roar.